In the last couple of years, I've been reading a number of scientific books about animals, most recently The Arrogant Ape by primatologist Christine Webb. All of them suggest that animal science has been undergoing something of a revolution in recent decades. See, for quite a long time, going all the way back to 17th century philosopher René Descartes, Western science has held an ideology which says that animals are essentially robots run by pre-programmed instinctive behaviors. Yeah, I disagree as well. They have none of the intelligence, self-awareness, and higher order cognition that characterize humans. They don't feel empathy. They don't have language. They don't have a sense of justice. They're really nothing like us. That was the prevailing assumption. A rather convenient one if you want to justify experimenting on them in painful ways, or, for that matter, producing and consuming them en masse. To think otherwise was to anthropomorphize animals, meaning to project our human emotions and thoughts onto their behaviors. The scientific community held this ideology so strongly that for most of the 20th century, to challenge it was to court professional exile. But in recent decades, a number of animal researchers have begun to push back on these beliefs and to test the alleged distinctions between animals and humans. One by one, measures of our superiority have started to fall. I've read about dogs refusing a treat in order to protest the injustice of another dog getting 2 treats. We'll try and avoid that today. I've read about ants navigating by counting their steps. Bees informing other bees where to find food with a dance whose duration corresponds to distance and whose angle from the beehive corresponds to the directional angle from the sun. I've read about sperm whales who are organized worldwide into clans, into these cultures, and who signal their identities with special codas in their whale songs, socializing only with whales from the same clan. And I read an account of a female chimp who had a stillborn baby. Even though she was new to the zoo at the time and had no social ties, Webb writes that the other chimps responded with behaviors to her loss in ways that the researchers had never seen before. They started following her closely, grooming her, and embracing her gently. They were attempting to reassure her, providing the first clear evidence that other animals console bereaved group members. So science is coming around at last to what many of us who have pets already knew, in some cases, discovering that many other creatures experience emotion, have abstract concepts like fairness, develop cultures, teach skills to one another, use tools, have a theory of mind, pass on wisdom from older to younger. All qualities that scientists once claimed distinguished us from them. The more we study and test, the more clear it is that humans are simply one branch in a great tree of being on this earth. And the other branches, the dolphins and macaws and bonobos and geckos and sturgeon and beetles, are our evolutionary siblings. A minute ago I said that science's view of animals as inferior went back to René Descartes. Actually, it's worse than that. This notion that we are set apart from other life forms which are here for our use actually goes back to the Bible, to Genesis 1. when God creates humanity only in God's image and charges us to subdue the earth and have dominion over all fish and birds and animals. Yep, I'm sorry to say, this particular superiority complex lands at our own Judeo-Christian feet. Webb writes that historian Lynn White Jr. has even pointed to the rise of Christianity as marking, quote, the moment humans broke away from ancient beliefs that all beings, including other animals and plants, were imbued with spirits or souls. The moment, in other words, when we remade God in our image and thereby lost our sense of fraternity with the rest of creation. There are non-Western cultures who have retained it, though. I was talking with my friend Andy, who works very closely with the Cherokee in North Carolina. Like many First Nations people, they refer to animals with familial terms, brother, sister, etc. And they use who and not what about them. And this isn't just a quirk of language. Andy told me that a revered tribal elder went into hospice recently, and shortly before he died, a couple of bears lumbered out of the woods. They pressed their noses to the window of his bedroom. Then they went and drank some water from a nearby pond and disappeared back into the forest. The bears came to let him know it was okay to go now, a tribal member told Andy. And he meant it literally. Luckily, Genesis 1 notwithstanding, there are those in the Christian tradition who have recognized that we are part of the natural world and that other living things are our siblings, not our servants. St. Francis, whom we celebrate today, was one such mystic. Francis famously walked away from his well-to-do life as the son of a cloth merchant, took a vow of poverty, and lived for years in the woods outside of Assisi, Italy. Like Native Americans, he referred to birds and wolves and other creatures as his brothers and sisters. He spoke to wild animals. He fed them from his palm. If even a quarter of the stories about Francis are true, he seemed to understand humans as participating in a web of life, rich with the variety of created beings who live alongside us. What a difference would this understanding make if we contemporary humans were able to embrace it? How would our behavior change? How might we start to take what we need from the earth while contributing to its health and ability to nourish many life forms? We've already learned amazing things from how different creatures build climate-controlled colonies like termite mounds, or communicate over long distances by stomping the ground like elephants, or slice from air into water like kingfishers. What more might they teach us? What would happen if we began to see ourselves as participants and not rulers of this fragile earth, our island home? See, what we're doing here today, blessing our beloved pets, is fun and kind of cute. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's something serious happening as well. There's a chance to rethink our self-proclaimed dominion over other creatures. There's a chance to honor their unique abilities and ways of living. There's a chance to right-size our egos, to remember that we hold a role in an interdependent ecosystem that includes many others, to recognize that our inflated sense of superiority is quickly driving us toward extinction and taking thousands of innocent species with us. It's no accident that Francis identified with the poor and with the outcast, as well as our animal siblings. His gift, above all else, was humility. If we are indeed the arrogant ape of Christine Webb's title, it's time we took our example from him and reframed our fellow creatures not as resources to be exploited, but as our kin, which indeed they are. Amen.